Alright, so here is my before. My client comes in every 7 weeks. You see she only has a little bit of regrowth and a few little sparkle guys is what we like to call them instead of calling them gray hairs, and she's pretty blonde and dimensional through her mids and ends, but we're going to break it up a little bit by adding some depth in that mid. So the first thing we're doing is mixing up a low light. I'm using Shade ZQ, my go-to, because it's a demi-permanent. It's not going to be hard to get out of the hair. I'm using 6MB, 7N, 7GB. The 7GB is going to have the gold that we need to fill her hair so the color actually takes. The 6MB is a beautiful tone. It's going to add a little bit of depth, and the 7N is just to neutralize it a little bit. For her paint between for those sparklers, I'm using 7 NNA and 20 volume. For something like this, you could use a 10 volume, but I have noticed with the Joico Youth Locks that I feel like it just takes a little bit better. She has been my client for a while, and I know that even though she has a few gray hairs, they are super, super stubborn. And the reason I'm using a NNA is a double pigment and an ash all in one. Anytime you're doing a paint between and foils, it can go a little bit warmer, so it's always good to have that double pigment to make sure you have your gray coverage in check, but then also have that ash to counteract any warmth while lifting and depositing that color. Next on the lineup is Schwarzkopf Blonde Me, my go-to lightener recently. I love this for so many reasons. One, because it has amazing lift. It's super strong, but not in a scary way. Blonde Me actually has a bond builder built inside of it, so it's going to keep the hair protected and keep the hair as healthy as possible while lifting. Something that's going to be unique to this service is that we aren't going to have to go through in low light or shadow light everywhere, because she has a lot of a dimension in the interior of her hair because she has been maintaining her dimensional blonde through getting partial and half highlight. So we're actually going to be doing a full transformation with only a partial or a half highlight, whatever you want to call it. So as I'm going through, I'm doing more of a wide stitch pattern because anytime I'm adding a dimension, I'm a huge fan of not doing super fine sections because I feel like sometimes it can be almost too blended if I go in with this tightly packed baby light to where the dimension or the highlights can get lost with a transformation like this. As I'm working my way up the head, something you're going to be noticing is that I'm working on a brick clay pattern. This is going to help everything not be so uniformed. If I went through straight up and brought down the shadow lights the exact same amount, you're going to see a harsh line to where those shadow lights into the previously lightened end. So the easy way to keep it broken up is to alternate how far down I'm bringing those shadow lights. Some right past the regrowth, some all the way to the end of the foil, some in between that area between past the regrowth and the end of the foil. And working on a brick clay pattern is going to help everything be broken up, be a lot more blended and seamless for our end result. As I'm working up the head, continuing on that brick clay pattern, wide stitches, more of like a ribbon stitch if you would, to add in that dimension, I'm going to basically break down the whole purpose of a shadow light. Basically, whenever you're going to utilize this technique, it's always going to be whenever a client wants to add a little bit more of a rooty look, a little bit more of a melted look, and this is going to help break up that mid shaft area that's been previously lightened or that has their regrowth, and it's going to help them feel a lot more rooted, transitioning into that broken up mid that has a lot of dimension, and then that transitioning into their ends, which is going to stay nice and bright. Now that I've worked my way up to the head, this is my last foil, and I've only utilized that low light formula so far, and now I'm going to be going in and doing something that's just a little bit different. Since this is the top foil, what you're going to see, I'm going to actually be going in with our lightener, and I'm going to be doing one highlight right here. As you can see my stitch pattern, what this is going to do is help break up that root, so whenever we're rooting at the bowl, it's going to help everything be more of a softer blend instead of having that harsh regrowth line blending into our shadow lights. And after I'm done foiling the back, I'm going to be going straight in with that gray coverage formula. And if you remember, we used a double pigment and an ash and NNA. And that formula is going to help cover any little gray guys that were left behind with the double pigment, the NN. And then the A is going to be counteracting any warmth we might get, because with our gray coverage, we did use 20 volume. And that's being incubated in between the foils. So it's going to be getting a little bit of lift from that. And that's going to help fight any warm tones. Straight after that, I'm going to be parting off a Mohawk section, and I'm going to be working on her money piece. What we're going to be doing is a foil to the right, a foil to the left, and then we're going to be going straight back, continuing those highlights really packed in together to give her that nice pop around her front hairline. I have become a huge fan of highlighting right off of the hairline instead of doing direct slices whenever it comes to any lived-in look, to any look that has a lot of dimension. The only time you'll really see me slicing the hairline these days is if it's on a total like blonde bombshell. So what we're going to be doing is continuing that highlighting pattern a few foils back, just so that we can give her that pop, but also ensure that everything stays nice and blended with the subtle dropouts. After that hairline detail work, we have made our way over to the Mohawk sectioning, and we are working up that same pattern we have in the back. Unfortunately, we can't bricklay as much right here, so I'm just going through alternating my stitches. Some are going to be a little bit more of a deeper, thicker stitch, and some are going to be more of a finer stitch. That's how we're going to be alternating that variation with how much dimension we are going to be adding. And then we're going to finish it off with that top foil being the highlight, the same reason, to break up that regrowth, so we have a nice softer blend into those shadow lights. And then we're going to be doing our paint between. This technique is going to be one of my favorite ways for clients to be able to grow out their natural color. This is going to be a low maintenance color for clients, and I can't tell you how often I use this shadow light technique in the salon for anyone who's coming in and they are just feeling blah, they want to change. In the fall time, it's great to add in a little bit of dimension, because we know that everyone wants to add a little bit of dimension in the fall. And then also people who are wanting to kind of slow down on coming in every 6 to 8 weeks to get their color touched up. This is going to ensure that she has a nice, soft, blendy, beautiful grow out. Now it is time to mix up her toner after she is fully processed. I'm going in with my go-to Shades EQ, and I'm using 6NB, 7N, and 7NA. 7NA to counteract any warmth that may be left behind while you are lifting, and then 6NB and 7N, honestly, because it's one of my favorite roots and it's just so pretty. I'm going to be mixing this with the Gel Developer by Shades EQ, and it is my go-to, guys, whenever you are low lighting and whenever you're doing a root, because it's not as liquidy as the regular processing solution, so you're going to have a lot more control. As far as her all-over toner, I'm continuing that train of Shades EQ, and I'm using 9VG, which is a violet gold, 9P, which is pearl, which is going to counteract any yellow or orange tones because it is blue and violet based, and then 9N just to help neutralize everything so it doesn't go too ashy, counteracting those tones at all. Something that I need to remember is that her ends were not previously lightened, so I know that is going to be taking this toner a lot slower than the lightened mids or regrowth that we had just processed. The way that I'm going to make sure that everything takes evenly is applying this toner to her ends first, and as soon as I see a tonal shift in her ends, I'm going to be throwing on that toner everywhere. This is going to ensure that everything takes evenly, since her lightened hair would be sucking up that toner a lot faster. Something else that I'm doing a little bit different here is that I usually brush the client out root and then tone. But here lately, guys, I have been toning the client, and then after I have toned them, I'll apply my barrier of like a conditioner or a like an Olaplex treatment to her mids and ends to ensure that that root doesn't run down. But I love toning first now because I feel like it almost helps seal the cuticle a little bit. It helps everything get back intact, and then we can apply that root, rinse, wash, condition, and then head out of there. As far as my rooting goes, I only have to root where I did my foil work and help blend in those shadow lights and those highlights together. I'm using something a little bit different as well, and this is going to be a brush, well, a color brush that you may be seeing launching soon over at Jay-Z Styles that I'm excited about. The reason I love rooting with this brush is because the bristles are so soft, it applies the root so perfectly. It's got a pointed end so you can section with it, and then also if you flip it over, your blending comb is all intact, so you're not going to be picking up, putting down so many different things whenever you're toning, and it's going to just help speed up your time so much. As far as my placement for this root, I brought it down about 1.5 inches in the back, and then I'm going to be working on a slight angle, bringing it down further towards the back and less around the face. I'm going to be letting this root process for about 10 minutes, and then I'm going to be tapping out that hairline for an additional minute, and then we're going to be rinsing and heading on over to start her extensions. Now, this client only has one row of extensions for fullness in the color the Freddy, and honestly, it is the perfect color for her. She only does one row because she likes to be low maintenance, and I honestly say it is the perfect dimensional blonde color in the extension world, if I do have to say so myself, besides my color, of course. Besides my color. After styling, I'm super excited that you guys are going to be able to see this after. I really hope you guys learned something from this video. If you did, or if you have any follow-up questions, please leave them down below and I'll be happy to answer them as soon as possible. And let me know what you think of this after. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll be back every Wednesday with a new color tutorial.